Hi, and welcome back to another AnyRPG Development Livestream. In these videos, you can watch the live streaming of the development of the AnyRPG Engine, a free and open source role-playing game engine designed in Unity and written in C#. If you don't already have a copy of AnyRPG, you can pick one up from anyrpg.org/downloads in both Unity package as well as source code format. You can also find A Lost Soul, the free game that I work on in these episodes, at the same page. In this episode, we will be importing some new assets and making a weapon set for our ancient dungeon. In the last few episodes, we imported some armor that was generously donated by Arteria3D, and we're going to use those for the armor sets, but we haven't come up with a weapon set yet. So I wanted to put together a consistent looking weapon set, and there's a couple of full weapon sets that you can get for free, but I'm saving those for different dungeons. So I put together a weapon set that's sort of loosely based on this customizable weapons pack free, available on the Unity Asset Store. And I'll have links for all these assets in the description. But basically I wanted this sort of like copper gold looking weapon set right here. And I wanted everything else to sort of match the visual style of this because the dungeon itself is pretty stylized looking, so I wanted a stylized weapon set. In order to get a full weapon set for all the characters, I needed a shield, so I'm using this Fantasy Shield Pack free from the Unity Asset Store as well. And in order to find a bow that matched, I actually had to go over to Sketchfab and find this bow versus InfernalBow. And there's actually a lot of work to be done to this package, and don't mind the look of it. It's meant for VR, this view, and I can't figure out how to make it go to normal. But anyway, if you look at this bow set, it's kind of cool. It's got like some yellow highlights on it that look like it would go really well. And then it also comes with this awesome like fiery InfernalBow version of it too. So this set actually takes a little bit to import and mess around with, and I'm just going to quickly give you some suggestions on it in case you want to use this set yourself. What I had to do is I had to spend a while with the materials because the materials don't come applied to the item. So in the bow versus InfernalBow here, what I did is I just moved all the textures into the materials folder once I extracted the materials from the item, and I have renamed these textures here to basically match what they are, which materials they apply to, because there's no way to know by default, and the only way that I knew was basically going into the item and then swapping out materials on textures and literally coming back to this page and like zooming in until I could figure it out. So if you're going to do it, I'm just going to leave this up here for a few seconds so you can screenshot that if you need. The original name of the texture is over on the right here, and then I put the name that matches the material over on the left. So this is the setup basically for each of these textures will match these materials if you want to use this really cool bow set from Sketchfab. So next up we have this stylized purple copper staff, also from Sketchfab. It kind of matches the yellow motif. And we'll have these brass knuckles, also kind of sort of stylized looking here, also available for free from Sketchfab. So I've imported all these things into my project, and in this episode I want to go through a new workflow that I actually found from this guy right here, Jason Wyman, formerly Unity3D College, and he has a great video about putting handles on things, and I'll have a link to that in the description. For what we're doing, we've got an UMA model, and so I don't want to mess with the bone structure immediately and attach handles to the model, but we can use the idea of putting handles on weapons, and for that I'm going to make a new set of prefab templates that I'm going to include with the engine, just to basically speed up the workflow a little bit when it comes to importing weapons. So let's go ahead and get started on that. we will be looking under the example folder and under prefabs. And I am going to be creating a new folder here and call it templates. And we'll go into the templates folder here. And what we want to do basically is just create a new empty game object. And I am going to call it weapon handle template. We're going to reset the transform on it and go into the scene view and hit F to focus on it. And what I want to do is then under the weapon handle template, I want to add a new 3D object cube. And let's actually just move the weapon template off this speaker here so we can see it a little better. Okay, so what this is going to be is we're going to attach all our weapons from now on underneath this weapon handle template, and I'm going to make this cube here into something that you can pretty much see that is going to be a weapon handle. So the way that I want this to work is actually I want 0.2 on the Y and 0.05. Okay, so this is about the size of a hand here, 0.2 meters tall. So this is basically where we're going to position our weapons. And what this means is that we'll be able to see where the weapon handle is, and we won't actually have to put it on our player because we're going to create a series of templates that basically define like weapon handle attachment points here. And the way this coordinate system is going to work is that when you're holding the weapon in your hand, if you can imagine there's like a sword or something in here, then Z is going to be facing forward, like directly forward with your hand, Y is up, and X is out like normal. So if I was holding a sword, I'd have like my sword handle right here, and the blade would be sort of up here. So now what we want to do is basically just take that weapon handle template. I'm just going to reset the transform on it so it goes back to 0, and we're just going to pull it into the templates folder here. And actually, what I want to do is now we're just going to open this, and I just want to make it a little bit more obvious visually which way is forward. So I'm going to shrink it on the x-axis to like 0.03. There we go. And you know what? Why don't I even, we'll just call this handle. Okay, that's good actually. All right, so now we've got a weapon handle template. So now let's actually practice putting some of our weapons in there. So in our game, we want prefabs. So what I'm going to do is basically remove this from the scene. We're going to hit Control D to duplicate this weapon handle template here. And we are going to pop it into the bow folder under prefab. And then we are going to call this one the bow handle. And then we're going to open up the bow handle prefab, and we're going to pull in the bow. And there it is. So this bow looks kind of huge right now. Let's scale it down. All right, that looks about right. Basically, that's where the character is going to be holding it in his hand, and that sort of looks like about the right scale. His hands should pretty much take up this much of the bow. We can mess with that a little bit if we want, but that'll be good for now. We'll also want an arrow. So why don't we just take the bow handle, Control D to duplicate it, and call this arrow handle. We'll open the arrow handle prefab, remove the bow from it, pull an arrow in. The arrow is huge, so we'll scale it down. And actually, that's about right. Because basically the character's going to like reach over, pull it out of his backpack, and then hold it by the back and pull it back. So I think actually that's okay, because this is where his back hand is going to be. And next we'll want the quiver handle. So I'm going to Control D. Call this the quiver handle. Double click, open it up, remove the bow, pull in the quiver, scale it down to 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. Okay, so this quiver is going to sit on the character's back. And when I do back attachments, the way that I'm going to do them is actually have them facing Z backwards on the character. So the character will be on sort of this left side of it here, facing forward. I'm going to have the back handle rotated 45 degrees naturally. So I think what we'll do here, and I'll have it in the center of his back. So I think we'll just place the handle there, or the bow there in relation to the handle. We want to do that for the brass knuckles as well. So I'm just going to Control D to duplicate the quiver handle here. I'm going to pull the quiver handle into the brass knuckles low poly prefab folder. I'm going to call this the brass knuckles handle. We will open that prefab, get rid of the quiver, grab the brass knuckles and pull them in. Okay, this is a good example here. So the brass knuckles at 0, 0, their item inside there isn't even at the 0, 0 point. I think I'm actually going to reset that first. So let's just open up this prefab here. Okay, so this is actually considered to be at 0, 0 of its parent. So actually we can't really do anything to fix this in particular, because basically this mesh right here is designed so that it's over there. But that's great because this is a great example of how this handle thing is going to be working for us. So let's take the brass knuckles, scale them down 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. Now they're a lot closer to the handle. Now if we imagine that this is in our character's fist, so what we want to do is press E to rotate them. We'll rotate them up here. Actually, you know what? Control Z. I'm going to use center. And actually, let me just go back into the brass knuckles here. Now that I have it on center, right, because this is always the same no matter what you click up here. It's just how that widget displays. Okay, so yeah, we're doing it the right way. So anyway, we're going to rotate this. I'm going to hold down Control, rotate the thing 90 degrees, and hit W to move it, and we'll basically position it there so that if you can imagine the player's fist is wrapped around it, so this is basically where the player will be grabbing it, and then his knuckles will be going through there. So that looks pretty good. Next up, we will want to make, what is this, customizable weapons? Yeah, so I'll make a prefab folder and an import folder, just because I like to have those as the names of my folders. It makes it really easy to figure out what I made and what naturally came with the pack. So we're going to go into the prefabs folder here. Let's actually just go back to our brass knuckles and Control D to duplicate the brass knuckles handle. And we'll pull that brass knuckles handle down here into this prefab folder. And we will have a, let's see, this is going to be the ancient, I don't know if I want to do a sword or an axe. Let's do ancient short sword handle. And let's just go take a look at the weapons that we got with this pack here. So dagger, sword, two-handed sword, and axe. So I think I like the two-handed axe. It's very cool looking. You know what? Why don't we just do both of them? I mean, we got the set. We might as well do both of them. Okay, so we'll do the two-handed axe, two-handed sword, and one-handed sword, basically. So Control D to duplicate that. Call it the ancient broad, ancient longsword handle. Control D to duplicate that and call it ancient two-hand axe handle. Alright, then we'll open the ancient longsword handle, delete the brass knuckles from it, go into this prefab folder here. I believe the one that I wanted was, actually I need to figure that out here. So, was it two-handed axe A1 or A2? It was two-handed axe A2. I like this one. It's got sort of this red material on the handle, and that red material matches the this sort of red that's on the bow here as well. So we will be using A2. So we'll go back to the ancient two-handed axe handle, delete that, go into the prefabs, pull ancient two-handed axe set A2 over here, and I don't know if that axe looks a little big or not. Let's try just scaling it down to 0.25. No, maybe 0.5. Yeah, because I mean, if that's my character's, it just seems really big at 111. Let's expand that handle out a little bit. Or you know what? Let me just look inside there. Actually, yeah, that's probably fine, to be totally honest. Because if that's the handle and the character's hand's going around it, that's about the right size. It's sort of big and huge and cartoonish looking. Okay. We'll try that out, see how it works. And then under the ancient short sword handle, we'll want to remove the brass knuckles here. Go back to the prefabs and pull in the sword A2. And that's pretty much perfect. That's lining up exactly where we would expect it to. And then we'll go back to the prefabs here and we'll pull in the ancient longsword handle and pull in the sword two-handed set A. And I think we want to move that one up slightly because I think our character is going to have his right hand, which is where this is going to be on the bottom, and I think our character stands with his left hand on the top. We'll find that out anyway. Okay, great. So now we've imported all those and we just have to do, let's see, the staff and the shield. So I'm going to Control D to duplicate the ancient two-handed axe handle here, and I'm going to pull that. First, I'm actually going to switch up the folder structure a little bit. So with shield pack free, we'll create a new folder and call it again shield pack free. Move everything into it. Create a new folder, call it prefab. I think there's some scripts in there because it's recompiling stuff. And create a new folder and call it import, just to keep things consistent. Let it recompile for a sec. And now let's go back up. Grab one of these prefabs here again, and whoops, there it is, and pull it down into the new prefab folder. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to rename this to the ancient shield handle. And we'll open up the ancient shield handle prefab, and then we'll go into the shield pack free and grab the shield B prefab, pull it in here, remove the two-handed axe. Just go take a look at the shield B prefab. Looks good. Okay, the shields I'm going to do a little bit differently. The shields, basically, this handle is going to be attached to the character's forearm. Still Z forward, but basically just pulled outwards to the left a little bit. So that means that I pretty much just want to take this shield and rotate it. So we'll rotate it 90 degrees here. And then basically that's about right. Next up, we want to do the stylized purple staff there. So we'll take the ancient shield handle, Control D to duplicate. We'll drag it down into the prefab of the stylized purple copper staff here. And we'll call this the ancient staff handle. We will open that prefab up and remove the shield from it, pull in the staff, and this one's a little bit small. Let's try 10, 10, and 10 and just see how that looks. That's about right. So let's actually just reset the transform on this thing and then do 10, 10, 10. Okay, it's still off a little bit. That's okay, we can move it. So let's see, when our character is holding this in his hand, that's about right actually. He should be holding it by sort of about the top notch right here. So we'll just move this right on top of the handle, right about there. To till it's pretty much right in the center. Maybe we'll move the staff down just a little bit, right about there. Okay, good. So he'll just be holding this with this thing straight forward, and if we're looking at our player holding it in his hand, we'll be looking at it onward like this. All right, good. That works. So now we have the handle prefabs for all of these things, and next we'll want to actually make the weapons for them. So for this, we can just copy any old weapons set. So one set we have here is the battle worn set. I'm just going to look for the prefab profiles here. And actually I want the weapons. Perfect. Okay. So our battle worn set pretty much has every weapon that we need. So battle worn axe, Katar, shield, staff, sword. I'm just going to duplicate all those. And I'm also going to duplicate the dragon blade because we need a two-handed sword. So we have the two-handed axe, the brass knuckles, the shield, the staff, the one-handed sword, and the two-handed sword. And we also need a bow. So I'm going to just duplicate the ranger bow as well. Alright, and these will be the actual weapons that we have in our inventory, and then we will link them to some prefab profiles. So we will call the battle-worn axe the ancient axe, and the battle-worn Katar will be the ancient brass knuckles, and the battle-worn shield will be the ancient shield. The battle-worn staff will be the ancient staff. The battle-worn sword will be the ancient sword, and this one will be the ancient two-hand sword. You know what? Let's call that the ancient broad sword. And you know what? I think broadsword is one word. I don't think we need to actually have the S capitalized. Let's just go ask Google. Google, is broadsword 2 words or 1 word? Broadsword is 1 word. Alright, good. And then, did we do the ancient bow? We didn't do the ancient bow, so we will do the ancient bow. Alright, great. So now we have all the weapon items for these. Let's just go into all these weapons, and we're going to set them all to dynamic level. And we're going to set the item quality to rare on all of them. So now they're blue items, basically. Okay. That's pretty good. Everything else is already like correct on them because I just copied these from existing weapons that were working. We'll need to change these holdable object names, and that's where we're just going to go make the prefab profiles for those. And we'll just let them teach the exact same abilities that they were already teaching, as well as have the same sound effects as they already had. I'm going to leave these resource descriptions the same. We'll just let them have the same icons for now. I'm not doing icons in this episode. So next we want to go make the prefab profiles for them. To do that, we need to actually jump into the game and make some attachment points on our character itself. And then we need to make some more templates. So let's see. We'll put these templates in the example folder, and under resources, under example, these ones are prefab profiles. And I'm just going to make a new folder here, a subfolder called template. You know what? I actually don't want that because that'll actually cause these things to get loaded. Just because of the fact that they're under the resources folder. I think I'm just going to create a new folder here, just call it template for now. And then we'll make a new folder again and call it prefab profile. Okay, that'll work. So basically what we want to do is create a new AnyRPG prefab profile in here, and we will call this a two-hand axe template. You know what? Let's call that the UMA two-hand axe template, because this template is going to define attachment positions for UMA characters. So UMA two-hand axe template. And then Control D to duplicate this. We will have the UMA two-hand sword template. Control D to duplicate this. Have the UMA one-hand sword template. Control D to duplicate again. Have the UMA fist template. Control D to duplicate again. Make that the left fist template. And the right fist template. Let's actually call this UMA main hand sword template. We don't have offhand swords yet, but we could in the future. And UMA staff template. And we also need to make an UMA shield template. Okay. I think, you know what? I think we also need an UMA quiver template. And an UMA arrow template as well. And an UMA bow template. Okay, that should do. We have the arrow template, the bow template, the left fist template, main hand sword, quiver, right fist, shield, staff, two-handed axe, two-handed sword. Perfect. So now we need to just update the names there to make sure that they match. So UMA arrow template. bow template. UMA left fist template. UMA main hand sword template. UMA quiver template. UMA right fist template. UMA shield template. UMA staff template. UMA two-handed axe and UMA two-handed sword template. Okay, and I think for now I'm going to try something. I'm going to try just copying these from basically some existing templates. So let's go find a resources folder. It's going to be under Lost Soul Weapon. And actually, you know what I just realized here? We already have basically a bunch of UMA templates. Why don't I just copy these? That's going to be a lot easier. So also need the bone shield and the two-handed sword, dragon's blade, and the ranger bow, ranger arrow. I can't find the quiver, but that's okay. We're just going to hit actually Control D to duplicate these. And this is the UMA two-hand axe template. UMA. This is the main hand fist template. This is the UMA offhand fist template. The UMA shield template. The UMA staff template. The UMA one-hand sword template. I already have a shield template, so I don't need the second one. The UMA two-hand sword template. The UMA arrow template. And the UMA bow template. So also making sure that these names match up here. So the UMA one-hand sword template, the UMA shield template, the UMA staff template, the UMA two-hand axe template, and the UMA two-hand sword template. Okay, so then we can basically go back down into our lower template folder here. Right there, and get rid of everything there. And then we will go find those original templates. Let's see, I think I can just close some of these things to make it a little easier to see what we're working with here. Okay, there they are. So we're going to grab all of those and pull them down into our prefab profile template folder. Then we're going to look for ancient stuff. So I should have an ancient arrow. Okay, I am not seeing the ancient arrow, so let's just go find that. So under our weapons folder, we had our bow, InfernalBow. And actually that's just because I just called it bow handle. In fact, all of these things just have the word handle on them. So let's instead search for the word handle. And there I've got my arrow handle. Under the bow template, I can search for the word handle. And there's my bow handle. Under the fist template, I'm going to search for the word handle, and there's my brass knuckles. Under the offhand fist template, I'm going to search for the word handle, put in my brass knuckles again. Under the one-hand sword template, search for handle and find my ancient short sword handle. Under the shield, search for handle, find my ancient shield handle. Under the staff, search for staff, find my ancient staff handle. Under two-handed axe, find my ancient two-hand axe handle. And under two-handed sword, find my ancient long sword handle. Okay. So these will now serve as the prefab profiles for these items, and that means we pretty much want to duplicate all of them. First though, I want to find a quiver. Because, let's see, we have this quiver right here, which basically goes on the goblin. But I think when our character gets the bow, he actually equips that as well. And I don't see a prefab profile for it. So let's just go search for the ranger bow. So the ranger bow actually doesn't have a quiver either. We're not equipping one currently. And honestly, I actually thought we were equipping a quiver. But it totally looks like we aren't, because otherwise we would pretty much right, the holdable object node, we don't have a slot for the quiver. That's why we're not equipping the quiver right now, because it would actually have to take up an equipment slot. Maybe it wouldn't. Okay, so basically we'll just skip the quiver for now and just do the bow part of this. I'll figure out the quiver stuff afterwards. So now what we want to do basically is just take those templates here and just blank out the description on all of them. We're going to hit Control D to duplicate all of them. And now we want to basically pull them up into our game, into the weapons under the prefab profile. So under a lost soul prefab profile weapon, I will just drag all of those in there. And call this one Ancient Arrow, and actually not even template, just Ancient Arrow. Ancient Bow. Ancient Brass Knuckles main hand. Ancient Brass Knuckles offhand. Ancient Sword. Ancient Shield. Ancient Staff. Ancient Two-Hand Axe. And Ancient Broad Sword. Okay, then we want to change the names up here to match. So Ancient Brass Knuckles main hand. Ancient Brass Knuckles offhand. Ancient Broadsword. ancient shield, ancient staff, ancient sword, ancient two-hand axe, okay, so then now we've got all of these items or all these prefab profiles, so now we need to link them back to the actual weapons. So let's go find our weapons. And change the titles. So ancient axe, and the holdable object will be ancient axe. Ancient bow, and the holdable object will be ancient bow. Ancient brass knuckles, and we will hold ancient brass knuckles main hand, ancient brass knuckles offhand. You know, I think we could actually do the quiver just by sticking the quiver in the offhand slot. I think I'll actually try that at some point. So, ancient broadsword, main hand, holdable object, ancient broadsword. Ancient shield, holdable object, ancient shield. Ancient staff, holdable object, ancient staff. Ancient sword, ancient sword. And finally, what I want to do is just change the description. Weaponry from an ancient temple. Okay, that looks good. So now we need a way to actually get these weapons. So let's buy them. And we have a vendor collection called weapons right here. So this new weapons set, let's see how many weapons we actually had. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we need to add 7 items to our weapons vendor collection. So this will come up to 17. And we want the ancient. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? No, that's fine. Yeah. Okay, so ancient brass knuckles. Actually, just to make this easier, I'm going to lock the inspector here. Go to this folder here, add a new inspector tab so I can just copy the names here. Start at the top at ancient axe, ancient bow, ancient brass knuckles, ancient broadsword, ancient shield, ancient staff, and ancient sword. Okay, so now that they're added to this vendor collection, I can go to my weapons vendor and I can basically just buy them. So that's actually good enough, I think, to be able to buy these items and test them. And let's see where this message is coming from. It looks like one of the weapons packs we imported, likely. And I don't know if that's because maybe there's like some scripts or something in one of them. Okay, it's actually one of the shaders. Okay, I will fix that later. For now though, let's just clear that and save everything and press play. Alright, so I misconfigured two objects. We couldn't find the holdable object ancient axe, and that's probably because I called the holdable object the ancient two-hand axe. So this will be in the ancient axe item, and the holdable object is probably ancient two-hand axe. Yes, okay. And we couldn't find the ancient brass knuckles. So if we look at the ancient brass knuckles hand, it looks like I accidentally removed the word offhand. Okay, that's good. Save that and press play again. Load up the game. Let's go find our warrior over in the Sun Temple. Okay, and let's head over to our weapon vendor over here. And buy some weapons. First I'm just going to rearrange my bags a little bit so that everything new pops into one bag. Okay, and I will talk to this guy, and now we've got some ancient weaponry. So let's pick up this ancient sword. You know what? My guy is totally broke, and I can't even pay for this stuff right now. Okay. I don't have like a cheat code to give him gold or anything like that, so let's actually just go make all those items cheaper. I'm going to set the currency name to copper and the price to 1 on all of them. let's try this again. 1 copper for our staff, 1 copper for our shield, broadsword, knuckles, bow, axe, and that's all of them. Okay, let's go try these things on. Try the ancient axe. And the problem is actually that we've got colliders on these things apparently. So let's look at all our handles. Open this thing up, hit in here, uncheck the collider. Ancient shield handle. Let's remove the rigid body. Actually, let's just remove the collider altogether. Same thing, we'll just remove the mesh collider altogether. Just remove the mesh collider from that one. Open up the staff handle. This one doesn't have a mesh collider. Two-handed axe, remove the mesh collider from it. And these arrows, just make sure there's no mesh colliders on them. There shouldn't be on the bow either, because the bow came from the same set as the arrows. For the brass knuckles, check if there's a mesh collider. No mesh collider, good. Alright, and let's just see. Honestly, I'm just going to rename these because that'll make them a lot easier to find when I'm looking alphabetically. And I'm going to call that the ancient quiver handle. Okay, good. So now all the colliders are gone from these items. So let's save that and press play. Okay, so now let's try equipping. Oh, you know what? I have to repurchase that stuff there. Okay, so we will purchase the staff, axe, bow, brass knuckles, broadsword, and shield. Then we will save the game and let's just run out in the sun here so we can see nicely. And then try equipping this stuff again. So there's the shield, and this means that my shield attachment point is not good, so we'll want to fix that. Let's try the broadsword. Broadsword looks pretty good. We will need to fix the attachment point slightly though. Brass knuckles, we'll need to fix that attachment point as well. Bow's actually not bad. And in fact, to be totally honest, that bow looks kind of small. I might even make that a little bit bigger. We'll have to fix the attachment point on the axe also. Man, that thing is just giant and humongous. It's actually got a really nice reflectivity to it that I didn't notice before. And the staff will definitely have to fix the handle alignment on the staff there. And for the sword, we'll definitely need to fix the handle alignment on the sword as well. Okay, so let's get started on fixing that stuff. So basically, sword and shield are attached to the character right now. So we want to go into the scene view, and we want to find our ancient shield handle and hit F to focus on it. Okay, so what I want to do here is I want to make a spine attachment point and flip it around properly for the shield. So let's Control D to duplicate the ancient shield handle. We will call this attachment handle. We will move the ancient shield handle down under the attachment handle, because the ancient shield handle should always be at 0, 0, 0, and we're going to take the ancient or the attachment handle and we're going to move this. We'll need to add a show real Euler angles script so that we can get the correct rotation from it. And then what we want to do is rotate this thing around basically so that the shield looks correct. When the shield is sitting at 0, 0, 0. So that looks pretty good. Let's see, maybe just rotate it slightly that way so it's not like sticking through his shoulder. Maybe just move it like a tiny bit back. Okay, we're going to pause and unpause the game, and now we have a position and a rotation in relation to the spine. So now what we want to do is we want to lock the inspector. We want to add a new inspector tab, and then we want to go find the shield attachment point. And we'll copy in, these are the sheathed positions. Copy in the real Euler angles for the sheathed rotation. And then let's see, then we want to That's actually okay for the shield now. So then we want to do the same thing for the sword, basically. So let's find our sword. And go back into the scene view. And then we want to basically do the same thing. We just want to Control D to duplicate the sword. We want to remove the sword from that. We'll just call this position handle. We will pull the sword under the position handle. We'll take the position handle and let's see, that's got a really weird center. I think I actually want to go to the pivot because the pivot's over here. Okay, so what we want to do is spin this thing around. And pull it upward a little bit like that. And rotate it that way. A little bit more that way so it's flatter against the character's back. Let's move it out a little bit. I don't really care if it pokes through the shield for now. I'm really just concerned about the positioning on the spine. Okay. Then we want to also add the show real Euler angle script to this. Pause and unpause so we have the correct values. Lock the inspector and look for the ancient short sword. No. Ancient sword. Go back to this inspector, find the prefab profile, and take these position values, copy them in for the sheathed position. And take these rotation values, copy them in for the sheathed rotation. Alright, and then that's the sword. So now let's do the brass knuckles. So we'll head down to the brass knuckles here. Unlock the inspector. Man, those brass knuckles are huge. You know what? I don't mind if they're cartoonishly big for now. It's actually kind of cool. Okay, so I'm just going to Control D to duplicate the ancient brass knuckles handle here. On the new one, I'm going to add a show real Euler angles script. I'm going to delete the brass knuckles from it. I'm going to pull the ancient brass knuckles underneath the handle, and then we will basically spin the handle around. So we'll hit Control, rotate this thing 90 degrees. Hit Control, rotate it 180 degrees, and basically they'll just sort of hang off the character's hip like that. And I'm okay with that. Yeah, that's not bad. Okay, so then we're gonna pause and unpause, and now we have the correct values. We're gonna lock the inspector. Look for the ancient brass knuckles. And I believe this is just the main hand that I have equipped right now. You know what? Let's unpause the game and hit C and just check. It's definitely the main hand. Okay, so what we actually need is two of these brass knuckle objects. So let's actually go buy another one, because that's how these ones work. They use two. So grab a second ancient brass knuckles here, and we can remove the shield and pop on the other brass knuckle. Perfect. And then the other brass knuckle goes on our other hip. Okay, good. We can see all our different attachment points there as well. What I'll do is I'll copy these attachment points back into the template, and when you use the new template workflow, you won't have to worry about doing all this stuff I'm doing manually right now. I'm just fixing them all permanently for the future. So we'll do... Okay, so this was the brass knuckles main hand. So we're going to take this position value, pop it into the sheathed position. Looks like the position actually doesn't change, but the rotation will definitely, because we spun it around a bunch. Oh, and you know what? That's why they look comically big, because the scale is 1.5. And actually, that scale, hopefully that doesn't adjust the position or rotation. Okay, good. So that's the ancient brass knuckles main hand, and then we want to deal with the offhand next. So this is our new one here. We're just going to go back to the scene, hit F. We've dealt with this one, so it's good. And now this is our offhand, so we're going to Control D to duplicate the offhand and just call it handle. Remove the brass knuckles from it, pull the other brass knuckles underneath it, and basically perform the same rotation trick. So we want to rotate 90 degrees that way, and then rotate 90 degrees that way. Whoops, just a second, I had the wrong object selected, sorry. We want to do that with the handle. So rotate 90 degrees that way, rotate 180 degrees that way. And we want to add the show real Euler angles script to this, lock the inspector, pause, unpause, so the show real Euler angles gets a chance to update, and then this is the brass knuckles offhand. So we'll go back to the inspector, look for the offhand, and set the position here, sheathed position. Position actually stays exactly the same. We're also going to set the scale back to 1, so these aren't quite so comically huge. And now we'll copy the rotation into the Euler angles script. Okay, that's the brass knuckles. Next, let's see, we haven't done the broadsword. We got to do the broadsword. Okay, so For the broadsword, the handles come up a little higher, and we'll want to spin them around slightly, about 90 degrees it looks like. So looking in the scene here, we have the ancient longsword handle. If we go to the scene view and hit F to focus on it, we can see it. Alright, and then I am going to Control D to duplicate that. Remove the sword, pull the old sword under that. This is our new handle, so we're going to add a show real Euler angles script. And basically, all we need to do is just rotate this thing like 90 degrees. Pretty much. And that looks good, I think. Maybe put that to global and just pull it back slightly. You know what? Let's go take another look at that. Let's turn that to local. I just want to rotate it a little bit. Rotate it a little bit more this way. Rotate it so it's a little flatter on his back. Pull it back a little bit. Yeah, okay, cool. I'm pretty good with that. So basically now we want to lock the inspector, and we want to go back to the inspector and search for the ancient broadsword prefab profile. Copy these position values into the sheathed position. Pause, unpause. Copy these rotation values into the sheathed rotation. Okay, that's good. And now we want to do the bow. Actually, let's do the axe. So yeah, okay, so for the axe we'll have to make some adjustments. Okay, so for the axe, same thing pretty much. So we have the ancient two-hand axe here. Just Control D to duplicate it. Remove the model from one of them. Pull this duplicated one underneath that one. Go into the scene view. Unlock the inspector. Add a show real Euler angles script here. We'll want to rotate this one, let's see, maybe that way. And move it down a little bit. Wow, that thing is humongous, but I love it, and it looks pretty good, I think. Let's go look at that from in front of the character. Yeah. You know what? Maybe, just maybe, let's go to the center. Rotate it that way so it's, yeah, more like that. Okay, perfect. So now we want to pause, unpause, and then we will take this ancient two-handed axe handle. We will lock the inspector, go over here, look for our ancient two-hand axe prefab profile, copy these position values into the sheathed position. copy the real Euler angles into the rotation. All right. Next, we will want to do the same thing for the staff. So we will take the ancient staff, we will clone it, we will remove the visual from one of the clones, we will pull the second clone underneath it, then we will take the top one, add the show real Euler angles script, go into the scene, and make some adjustments. Wow, this thing is like super huge also. Okay, we'll hit Control to rotate it. And honestly, I'm pretty good with that. I don't think it needs any more adjustments. So pause, unpause. Now we have the proper Euler angles there. So now we can go lock the inspector, go back into this inspector, look for the ancient staff, pull up its prefab profile, copy these position values, and copy these rotation values. Make sure to paste them into the sheathed position. Okay, so next up we need to do the bow. Honestly, I think the bow is perfect by default. I'm going to increase the scale on the bow to make it a little bit bigger, but the bow attachment point is already like perfect. Okay, good. So we've got nice visualizations of the attachment points hanging out all over our character. Now we want to actually do these items in combat. I actually have to reload before these will like show up properly in their proper positions. But yeah, okay. Let's go get into combat. So I'm just gonna save the game. And now we need a way to actually get them in a character who can actually get into combat. So we're going to go into our ancient dungeon and we're going to add these to basically the loot profile. So we have the, I believe, ancient temple, the Temple of Ancient Energy loot table. Let's go look for the loot table. There's the loot table. Okay, good. So we're going to lock the inspector. We're going to add 7 more items, bringing our total to 24. And then we're going to go back to the folder with all the ancient weapons in it and just do the trick again of copying them one at a time here. So the last one, ancient leather shoulders, so everything below here is the new stuff. So ancient axe, ancient bow, ancient brass knuckles, ancient broadsword, ancient shield, ancient staff, and ancient sword. Okay, good. So now that all this stuff is on the loot table, it's going to drop with 100% chance whenever I kill a mob. So let's go kill a mob in the Temple of Ancient Energy and go work out whether or not our attachment points are correct for the in-hand position for these items. We'll go to load game and we'll go find somebody in the Temple of Ancient Energy here, like this warrior. Alright, we'll just equip my rune sword here and then go beat up this spider. Alright, awesome. So the spider's dead, and let me just rearrange the bag slightly here so that everything is forced to go into this one bottom bag. And then we're just gonna save the game here and loot this and take all the loot. Wow. There's so much loot in there. I'm gonna actually have to get rid of some of it so I can finish looting the rest of these items. Alright, good. So now we can test out these items when they're actually in our player's hand. And so let's grab the bow. Honestly, that's pretty good. I'm happy with the bow. Let's grab the axe, and my player's out of combat. Okay, so to get my player back into combat, I'm going to go grab one of these mummies. They can't run down the stairs right now, so I'm just going to wander down the stairs here, and they will hold me in combat. It looks like I have to make some adjustments to the axe handle. The bow's great. Actually, you know what? Let's shoot him with an arrow. Oh, the arrow is perfect too, pretty much. Boom. Yeah, I'm liking that. Is this a right arrow? I can't really tell. Okay. Whoops. Accidentally killed him. Alright. Let's just throw on the axe. Save the game. And go aggro somebody else over here. I'm going to grab this spider. Alright, come here, spider. There. Run away, and this time we won't accidentally kill him with our bow. We'll remain in combat so that we can swap out all our weapons and test the hand positions with them here. Alright, so we're going to pause this. We are going to go back down here and find our ancient two-hand axe handle. We'll hit F to focus on it. Alright, and now what we want to do is unlock the inspector and pull this out so we can see this hierarchy a little better. We're going to Control D to duplicate the axe. We are going to remove the axe model from the second one, pull this one under, and now we want to add the show reel Euler angles to the top handle here. And then we want to take this top handle and move it so that basically it's sort of facing the right position in the character's hand. So let's go to the pivot. The pivot's okay. It's in the right spot. It's just got the wrong rotation. So I'm just going to rotate it forward a little bit. And actually, I think that's pretty much perfect. Let's unpause the game and just watch him hold that. We got to rotate it slightly backwards. It's almost perfect. So a little bit more like this, and maybe move it slightly backwards. And now it's looking pretty good, I think. It's still kind of sticking through his hand. Honestly, I think the fact that it's sort of sticking through his hand is more an artifact of the fact that the handle is just really huge and it's going to be pretty much impossible to fit in his hand perfectly. Maybe we can. Maybe we can move it over that way just a little bit. And maybe we can rotate it a little bit better. Actually, yeah, you know what? That's a way better rotation. Because now we can actually pull it in to be right in the center of his grip. And then back so that it's not overlapping his fingers. Okay, I think that's about as good as we're going to get it. So that'll be our axe rotation. So we take this handle here, we lock the inspector, we go back into the inspector, and we look for ancient star axe. And now we take these position values and we put them into the top position. Because this is the when the character holds it in his hand position. And same for the show real Euler angles. We will copy that and paste that into the rotation values. All right, and next weapon. So we know the bow's good. Let's put on the shield. And we got a little bit of work to do with the shield. So we're going to pause that and go back into the scene. Look for the ancient shield handle here. Unlock the inspector. Control D to duplicate the ancient shield handle. In the duplicated one, we'll get rid of the shield model, then we'll pull the ancient shield under the new ancient shield handle, and then we'll just go about rotating this thing until it's the correct rotation. So let's hold down Control, rotate it 90 degrees that way. Rotate it like 90 degrees that way. And honestly, I think that's pretty good. Let's just unpause it and take a look. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that for shield positioning. So we will pause the game now and we'll add the show real Euler angles script to that. Pause, unpause, so we get some good values in there. And then go back to the ancient shield in the inspector, find the prefab profile, and then copy these values into the sheath position. It looks like our position didn't change at all. We just left it alone, so we just need to update in the unsheathed, we just need to update the Euler angles. All right, next up we have the brass knuckles. And honestly, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to copy the values from the axe to the brass knuckles for the held position. So if we take these ancient brass knuckles here and we just pop them underneath the ancient two-handed axe And then we reset the transform. Nothing's happening. Oh, I think I reset something else's transform. Let's try this again. Reset the brass knuckles transform. There we go, and it's perfect. The brass knuckles are looking exactly like they should. Good, so basically we're safe to just copy the axe value, handle values to the brass knuckles. So we will look for the ancient axe. We actually want the ancient two-hand axe. We'll lock the inspector. Then we'll pull up the ancient brass knuckles prefab profile. And then we'll pop in these position values. And these rotation values. And then let's see what we haven't done yet. We haven't done the sword yet. So basically the sword is also a one-handed weapon, so I'm fairly confident that with the sword we could just do the exact same thing. We'll just copy in the brass knuckles values. And with the staff, same deal. Just copy in the brass knuckles values. So, ancient sword. Just copy in actually these axe values here. And same with the rotation. And then the ancient staff. Copy in the same values. All right, and we can save that. And then let's just jump back into the game and see if all those things are working now. Okay, that's great. Staff looks good. Bow looks good. Shield looks good. Axe looks good. Secondary brass knuckle does not look good. And that's because we haven't actually done anything in the offhand yet. So we need to fix the brass knuckles offhand. So we'll unlock the inspector. Control D to duplicate that. On the new handle, we will delete the model, pull the old one underneath that, go back to the scene view, hit F to focus. Then make sure that we're selecting the right item, add the show real Euler angles script to it. Hold down Control, flip that around. Hold down, Control Z. There we go. Hold down Control, flip that around. Move that forward a little bit more. Actually back a little bit, I think. And I think that's pretty good. If our character is actually doing a pose where he has got like his fists closed, his fingers will definitely be wrapped around that. So that's good. We want to pause, unpause, and now we have the correct values for that. So we're going to lock the inspector and look at the ancient brass knuckles offhand in this inspector window. Then we're going to copy in these position values here. And we're going to copy in the real Euler angles to the rotation. Okay, cool. So next up we want to check the sword. The sword is looking really good. We want to check the broadsword. The broadsword is looking pretty good also. You know what? The broadsword is not. Oh, and you know why? I know why. Because I don't think I did the broadsword. So let's unlock the inspector here and just look back at the ancient axe. No, at the ancient two-hand axe. And then let's just lock that and look at the ancient broadsword. Yeah, that's the problem. I didn't copy the axe values over to the broadsword for the in-hand position. So we'll just copy those over right now. Copy over the rotation values. All right, good. And staff is looking good. Okay, let's jump out of the game. Do one final test here. All right, so staff is good, shield is good, bow is good, secondary brass knuckle is good, regular sword is good, broadsword is good, axe is good. Let's actually take that brass knuckle out and put it back in our primary hand again. Primary hand brass knuckle is looking awesome. Okay, very cool. Last thing we need to do is I want to mess around and see if I can get the quiver to show up on my character's back successfully. So let's just see. Do we have the ancient quiver? We do not. The quiver itself should never be sheathed or unsheathed. which means basically the bones would be the same for both of them. So let's go to the prefab profile directory here, unlock this inspector, and we will make an ancient quiver prefab profile. And to see how to do this, we can actually look at the skull claw, because the skull claw actually technically does equip 2 items out of a single, or no, maybe it doesn't. We have the Initiate's Katar. We have the Battle-Worn Katar. No, okay, these things all potentially have... I'll go check. I will see whether or not we're doing 2 items or 1 for them, because I think I actually added the multiple item functionality already. So this prefab profile here is the ancient quiver, so we're going to call this ancient quiver. And the prefab is going to be basically the ancient quiver handle. For the sheathed position, we can use an existing spine one. This actually came from the axe, so this spine one is probably pretty good. And we'll just literally copy the exact same values into the sheathed and unsheathed positions so that whether you're in combat or not, this quiver here is always on your back. And then what we want to do is we want to go, let's just look at the skull claw for a second. I actually made 2 of them, okay. And let's just look at the Initiate's Katar. Right, and the way I did the Katar is that it will equip based on which one you have. Okay, like 1 item you can equip in either hand. So I don't think I've actually done one of these yet where we've got 2 of them. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set a second holdable object. And when our bow is equipped in the main hand, the holdable object should be the ancient quiver, basically. I believe that's what this says. I haven't tested this yet, so we're just going to see if it works. Because theoretically this thing does support multiple holdable objects per weapon. So let's equip the bow, and that's not bad. Actually, that worked. That worked perfectly. So I now have a quiver. My quiver is at the axe handle position, which is why it looks a little messed up there. So let's just go ahead and fix that right now. Beauty. That is awesome to know that that works. I designed that with that idea in mind a long time ago and hadn't actually tested it yet. So what we want to do here is look for the ancient quiver handle. We want to Control D to duplicate it. We want to make this duplicated one just a handle. We'll pull the regular quiver handle underneath it. We'll go back up to the main handle. We will show real Euler angles on it, go into the scene, hit F to focus on it. let's just pull it down here a little bit and hit E to rotate it, and let's, just a second, Control Z. I'm going to hold down Control here, rotate the thing exactly 90 degrees. You know what, that's not bad. I think it's actually pretty much perfect. Maybe we should rotate it a little bit more. Maybe we'll have it like upwards like this a little bit so that his arrows aren't falling out when he's running around. And just looking at them, the arrows are the correct one because they've got this sort of plumage on them. What I want to do is, now I'm going to pause. Oh, you know what? It's floating now. So let's move it a little closer to his back. I guess this is going to depend on how bulky the armor he's wearing is. It may sort of stick through it a little bit. Alright, so we're going to pause, unpause, and now we have the correct values for that. We're going to lock the inspector, and we're going to look at the quiver and the ancient quiver, and now we basically just want to take these position values. We're going to copy them in there. We're going to copy them in the other place too, because no matter whether our character is in combat or not, they should be in the same spot. The quiver should never move off the character's back. He has no reason to be holding it in his hands. Okay, and I just want to make sure I'm actually using the correct arrow here. So let's just go back into the scene here, and I want to make sure that this arrow is the right one. And I can tell by looking at the plumage on it, if I can actually see the plumage. It looks like I'm actually using the wrong arrow. This looks like the arrow that's designed to go with a goblin set. So let's look at the ancient arrow. This is a prefab profile. The prefab profile is using the ancient arrow handle. Ah, I know what the issue is. The issue is actually that the shoot bow ability is hard-coded to use an ancient arrow as its prefab. Let's just go take a look at that. So my character is using this ability here called shoot bow, and the holdable object name is the ranger arrow. I'm going to have to do some adjustment to the engine to figure out how I'm going to get around that. Like basically, like the bow is going to have to perform some sort of override on the arrow object. I'm not going to do that in this episode because that's way out of scope of what I was looking to do. But for now, I think everything is pretty much working. So let's do one final test. What we want to do now is remove those white visual indicators from all of our ancient equipment handles. So we'll go to the ancient arrow handle. We will open up the prefab and just uncheck the handle. Ancient bow handle, open up the prefab, uncheck the handle. Ancient brass knuckles, open up the prefab, uncheck the handle. Ancient longsword, open up the prefab, uncheck the handle. Ancient quiver, open up the prefab, uncheck the handle. Ancient shield, open up the prefab, uncheck the handle. Ancient short sword, open up the prefab, uncheck the handle. Ancient staff, open up the prefab, uncheck the handle. And ancient two-hand axe, open up the prefab, uncheck the handle. Good. Now let's save that, and we will do one final test. and just make sure that all the weapons are working properly and that all the changes that we've made have now been applied. So staff looks good. Shield looks good. When our character is actually holding a sword, he'll be doing a better pose. Let's actually make him hold a sword. There we go. You can see the shield is actually working properly now because his hand's not open and sticking out through it. Brass knuckle looks totally awesome. I love that. This big, huge, massive axe looks cool. Broadsword is working. I may adjust the handle a little bit later. I honestly thought that when he did the broadsword, he was using his right hand on the upper, or I mean on the lower part of it, but he's actually using it on the upper. But that's good enough for now. It's like close enough. And yeah, that's it. That's all of them. And the quiver is working perfectly. Let's go shoot some arrows at this guy. All right, good. And quiver still works, and the bow properly sheathes itself on the character's back. The shield sheathes itself. Didn't unequip the bow. I guess you can have a bow and a shield equipped at the same time. The axe properly unequipped everything. The knuckles properly hanging off the character's hip there. The sword properly hanging off the back. The broadsword hanging off the back, and the staff also hanging off the back. Let's just go adjust those those quivers, because I think honestly that quiver is such a cool model that I actually want to make it a little bit bigger. So we will go into the ancient quiver handle. We will open up the prefab. We'll take the quiver. Let's double the size of it. Set it to 0.2 on all axes. Then let's take the ancient bow handle, open up that prefab, go into the bow, set its scale to 0.2 on all axes. Man, this bow, it took me like an hour to put this bow together, but it was so worth it. It is such a cool looking bow. All right, press play again, and let's just go test out this bow and see if it looks better in this new scale, because like it was so tiny, it just wasn't doing it justice. This bow is such an awesome looking bow that it should be very prominent when our character is holding it. So we're going to swap out the bow, and that's a lot better. Look at that. Now I have this huge quiver and this nice looking longbow. The thing is huge. You can actually like see the graphics properly and stuff. I'm going to have to adjust the quiver to make it go like a little bit further down his back, but that's just awesome. And now the arrow actually makes a little more sense with it too. There's this interesting set on the asset store called standardized bows, which can animate non-animatable bows. So I might play with that in the future too. For now though, I am like super happy with all these weapons. The new import workflow, now that I've adjusted basically the positioning of all these handles and stuff, it should mean that pretty much in the future, the import workflow for importing any new item will basically just be to look at the template handle, the weapon handle template, basically just duplicate it, pop the weapon into it, pull it into the right position, and then duplicate a template that's for the weapon that you're using. So if you're bringing in a two-handed axe, you'll want to use, for example, the UMA two-handed axe template, because this already has all the exact proper attachment positions for a sheathed and in-hand weapon. So I know this episode took like 2 hours building that new template sort of workflow, but the next import will be way, way, way quicker. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I want to get this next release out pretty quick because it's got a lot of enhancements, and you'll see in version 0.8 that new templates included in the engine. So as always, if you enjoyed it, then don't forget to thumbs up the video, subscribe to the AnyRPG YouTube channel, or just leave a note in the comments. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time.